Welcome to Washington in Focus. I'm your host, Brett Davis, the Center Square's Washington State editor. Joining me today is the Center Square's intrepid investigative reporter, TJ Martinell. I know we've had this conversation off air before, but I can't remember what you said, so I'm just going to ask it again. What does the TJ stand for?
Timothy James.
I'm sorry, I had to ask. I just could not remember. Thanks for indulging me. So your most recent story is about Washington State possibly creating a Cash for Clunkers program, but for electric vehicles. For people who don't know, Cash for Clunkers was in 2008, was a federal program from 2008, officially known as Car Allowance Rebate System, or CARS, how clever, created to boost new vehicle sales and get gas guzzlers off the road. And as I recall, it didn't work out too well. So tell us about this potential EV version of the program here in Washington.
Yeah, so it's actually not a Cash for Clunkers per se, or literally, because the Cash for Clunkers, you got paid to get rid of the vehicle. What this would be is more of a subsidy program for people to buy a electric vehicle. They can be around $66,000 in Washington State, and the median household income is $82,000, and that's the median. So there's going to be people who are making less money than that. So effectively, these cars can cost more than an annual income for a household, and these are the people that the state is wanting to transition over to electric vehicles. So the draft recommendation by the advisory committee that's looking over this stuff, so this is very in the early stages, it would be to offer a per vehicle incentive of $15,000 for a new or used vehicle. And that would cost roughly an estimated $450 million over 12 years. And their goal is to have that remove 360,000 gas vehicles and replace with electric vehicles.
So now the members of this electric vehicle advisory committee, what do they have to say about that? Are they all for it or some against it? Was there a consensus?
There's logistical issues. There's one person on the advisory committee noted that this can be a huge administrative burden because they run truck scrapping programs. And so this amount would be potentially overwhelming for the scrap yards. So that's just one of many logistical issues. I think the other one, as you noted with the Cash for Clunkers that was implemented in 2008, is that it removes supply for used vehicles. And the cost of used vehicles are obviously going to go up because you're reducing the supply and the demand is remaining the same. So that would likely cause the cost of these things to go up for used cars that are gas powered.
Is that an intended side effect or an unintended side effect?
That depends on who you ask and who you're talking to.
I don't know. I guess I was just a little bit skeptical based on the federal Cash for Clunkers program. I know the Washington potential version is not exactly the same, but it doesn't exactly give me confidence that this will work. It seems like it might be better to, wait for and hope that the cost of EVs actually, comes down instead of incentivizing people to buy them by, trying to mitigate some of the costs.
The other issue is that what happens when people still don't buy the vehicles.
Right.
One thing that's not noted in any report, but just has been an issue is that electric vehicles, when the battery goes out, it's not cost effective to replace the battery. You might as well just buy a brand new car.
Right. That's definitely not cost effective.
And then what are you going to do with the electric vehicles that you have to scrap?
Right.
It's just one of many things. Then there could also, if there's a recession or there's a economic depression, $15,000 is not going to inspire people to buy an electric vehicle. And then also it's a question of where the charging stations are going to be. And then also there's going to be the issue of how much is it going to cost to charge them when you're adding so much demand onto the electrical grid.
Right. Now maybe I'm just a moron who doesn't know a lot about electric vehicles, but I've always wondered what happens if an electric vehicle, breaks down because it runs out of power. Because, in a typical vehicle, you could, bring a can of gas and, fill up your car. What happens? You can't do that. You can't bring like a container of electricity to an electric vehicle that's, stalled out or run out of power. So
yeah, there's also a separate issue, and that's the one of safety or public safety, because when a gas-powered vehicle catches fire, they can be put out by water. But if you have a battery fire, you cannot put it out. Effectively, you have to let it burn out. And that's going to take much more time. It's going to be a safety concern. So first responders are going to have to learn to be trained to deal with that.
So maybe electric vehicles aren't quite ready for prime time.
That seems to be the case.
Now, I noticed in your story that there were other recommendations. Can you tell us about a few of those? Or was this the main recommendation?
There was other recommendations. I think that this was the one that really stuck out because it's going to be one of the major obstacles that they're going to have to overcome is the cost. What they haven't addressed yet is where they're going to get the electricity for it. and how much electricity they're going to have to add to the grid and where they're going to get the sources of that from in a way that is reliable and dependable.
Well, thanks for filling us in. I will be curious to see if this program, assuming it is implemented, crosses the finish line or crashes and burns.
Indeed.
Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com. For TJ Martinell, this is Brett Davis. Please subscribe and thanks for listening.